The Throne of Silence, a witness's story. I was there when it began. She sat high in a tall chair, dressed in shining blue, her back straight and her face calm. An old man knelt before her, holding a tray of grain. His hands shook. He looked so small in front of her, like he already knew what was coming. "Lower," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. The man bent lower, pressing his forehead to the floor. Without even glancing down, she rested her foot on his head. I remember holding my breath. She didn't laugh, didn't show any joy. She just stared forward, calm and steady, while he trembled beneath her. After a while, the man tried to shift. Maybe he was in pain, maybe he just wanted to breathe. She pressed harder, forcing him still. "Do not move unless I say," she warned. "Even your pain belongs to me." I could see him fighting to stay silent. His body shook under her weight, but he didn't dare make a sound. And she sat there, leaning back as if testing how far he could bend before breaking. When she finally lifted her foot, the man sighed in relief. For a moment, I thought it was over. But then she snapped her fingers. The sound made me flinch. "Eat," she said. From the floor. The man froze. I could see the shame in his eyes, but he obeyed. Slowly, he bent down and pressed his mouth to the grain. Watching him crawl like that made my chest tighten, but she didn't flinch. She only watched calm, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Later, she stood. The chair had been raised higher, almost like a throne now. The man knelt weaker than before, crumbs stuck to his lips. She walked around him in slow circles. I couldn't take my eyes off her. "Look at me," she ordered. The man obeyed, his eyes lifting. For a brief second, I thought maybe she would show mercy. Instead, she struck him across the face. The sound echoed in the room. "Eyes are dangerous," she said coldly. "They hold rebellion. They must be crushed." She grabbed his chin, forcing his face upward, then shoved him down to the floor. He stayed there, broken, too afraid to rise. At last, she returned to her seat. She looked higher than ever, untouchable. The man lay at her feet, silent, no strength left to resist. "This is not cruelty," she declared. Her voice filled the room. "This is order. One voice rule. All others kneel." And then she placed her foot on his head again, pressing him onto the ground. This time, he didn't fight at all. He belonged to her completely. I watched her smile then, small, certain, and terrifying. And in that moment, I understood too. The Throne of Silence, Part 2. Her smile lingered as the man stayed crushed under her foot. I thought she might stop there, but I was wrong. She leaned forward in her chair, her eyes fixed on me. "You see," she said softly, almost kindly. "This is the shape of truth. One stands. One kneels. That is all the world needs." I didn't answer. My throat was tight, and I felt a strange chill in the room, as if the air itself bent around her words. She turned her gaze back to the old man. "Stand," she ordered. He struggled, his arms shaking as he pushed himself up. When he finally stood, hunched and weak, she circled him slowly. I could hear the sound of her heels against the floor, sharp and steady, like a drumbeat of control. Then, without warning, she slapped the tray of grains from his hands. It clattered across the floor, scattering everywhere. The man stared down at the mess, frozen. Pick it up, she said. One grain at a time. I saw his lips tremble, but he obeyed. His fingers shook as he picked up a single grain and placed it back on the tray. She watched, her face calm, her eyes unblinking. Minutes passed. The old man worked slowly, crawling on the floor, his body bending more with every movement. She never spoke, never moved. She just watched him like a hunter watches its prey. Finally, when he reached for another grain, she raised her foot and stepped on his hand. He cried out, the sound sharp in the still room. Quiet, she snapped. Her voice was ice. He bit his lip, holding the pain inside. She pressed down harder, her glittering heel digging into his skin. I felt my stomach twist, but I couldn't look away. After a long silence, she lifted her foot. He pulled his hand back, clutching it close to his chest. I thought she might let him rest, but instead, she leaned down and whispered, "Crawl." The word was simple, but it broke him more than the slap, more than the weight, more than the pain. His shoulders sank, and he dropped to his hands and knees. "Good," she said. "Now you understand what you are." I remember the way she sat back in her chair after that, calm, almost relaxed. But I couldn't relax. My heart was pounding. Watching her was like watching a storm, beautiful from a distance but terrifying up close. I thought about leaving, but I didn't move. Some part of me wanted to keep watching, even though every part of me was afraid. Because I knew she wasn't finished.